By the early 1990s, Pablo Escobar stood at the absolute center of a brutal war, a war that was tearing Colombia apart. For over a decade, his empire had dominated the global criminal market, controlling nearly every route, every shipment, and every bribe. But by 1993, the walls were closing in. Escobar had always been ambitious and utterly ruthless. From the streets of Medellín, he had risen to become one of the wealthiest men on the planet, but his empire was built on a foundation of violence, and now, the cost of that violence was coming due. The Colombian state was fighting back. Backed by the immense resources of the United States, the government was waging an unrelenting campaign against the cartels. Escobar fought to maintain his grip on power, but he could feel it slipping. The government was gaining ground day by day. For Pablo, the endgame wasn't just about money anymore, it was about survival. Specifically, it was about the law. His primary goal became the passing of a new constitution, one that would explicitly ban the extradition of Colombian citizens to the United States. Extradition was his nightmare. American authorities were demanding his head, intent on prosecuting him for a lifetime of crimes. To Escobar, a U.S. prison cell meant a life sentence in a concrete box with no escape and no power. He leveraged his immense fortune and political influence to fight it, even offering to pay off Colombia's entire national debt in exchange for immunity. But the government refused. Tensions exploded. In 1989, his hitmen attempted to assassinate future President Cesar Gaviria. The attack sparked international outrage and forced the government to unleash the full force of the military against him. Simultaneously, Escobar's inner circle began to fracture. Allies turned their backs, rival cartels sensed weakness, and his own family came into the crosshairs. The government dismantled his infrastructure piece by piece, arresting his accountants, seizing his properties, and destroying his labs. The king of cocaine was under siege. His business was bleeding money from constant raids, but the threat of extradition remained the sword hanging over his head. Then, in 1991, everything changed. A new constitution was adopted, officially banning extradition. It was the loophole Escobar had been waiting for. He proposed a surrender. He would turn himself in, provided the government guaranteed he would never be sent to the U.S. It was a desperate move to avoid an American prison, while keeping his grip on the cartel. Escobar surrendered, but his imprisonment was a farce. He was sent to a facility he built himself, La Catedral. Located in the scenic hills overlooking Medellín, this was no ordinary prison. It boasted luxury suites, a private gym, a football pitch, and a bar. Surrounded by his own guards and servants, Escobar lived in absolute comfort. On paper, it looked like a compromise. Escobar was in custody, and the government could claim a victory. In reality, Pablo was still the boss. From inside his fortress, he managed money laundering, issued orders, and ran the cartel via trusted couriers. La Catedral wasn't a punishment, it was a bunker protecting him from his enemies. However, his surrender had unintended consequences. Rivals saw it as a sign of weakness, his partners felt betrayed. Leaders of other cartels saw an opening to take his territory, and powerful figures began to doubt if Pablo could truly lead from behind bars. Despite his efforts, his family remained vulnerable. Government forces and rival gangs continued to pressure them. His wife and children lived under the constant threat of kidnapping or assassination. Escobar himself knew his family was now exposed. Although Pablo was in prison, his lavish lifestyle outraged the public and humiliated the authorities. Many felt the state had given up too much. The U.S. was especially vocal. They could not accept that the man responsible for so much death was still running his business. To them, Escobar's surrender on these terms was a defeat. They had insisted on extradition. But everything changed in 1992, when Pablo decided to escape. His breakout became the climax of his war against the state. Under immense pressure, the Colombian government decided the party was over. A year into his imprisonment, it was obvious the prison was just his headquarters. He was ordering hits on rivals from inside. The government finally decided this was unacceptable. They planned to transfer him to a real high-security prison, one that would truly cut him off from the world. Pablo caught wind of the plan. He knew a real prison meant the end of his business and likely his life. He had to move. With the help of his guards, he activated his escape plan. His allies on the outside were ready, knowing that if their leader was locked away for real, the entire Medellín Cartel would crumble. As the army prepared to seize him, Escobar simply walked out the back door. He disappeared into the mountains. It was a total embarrassment for the Colombian government. Their biggest trophy had just walked away. The U.S. responded by escalating the manhunt to a global scale. The hunt for Pablo became an international obsession, involving Colombian forces, American intelligence, and even rival criminals. His enemies, the cartels, struck a dark alliance with the authorities, feeding them intel on his location. For the U.S., it was a pragmatic deal. Destroy the Medellín Cartel by any means necessary. Escobar was losing his grip, desperate. Pablo looked to Europe. He aimed for Germany, hoping their strict asylum laws would shield him from extradition. He believed the German legal system, with its protections for refugees, would save him. But Germany denied his request. The doors were closing. He realized he had no support left on the global stage. He had to find another way. His family was in extreme danger, forced to run from country to country, hiding from assassins. Every attempt to bribe officials failed. His family was his weak point, and his enemies knew it. Escobar was reduced to a fugitive, shuffling between safe houses in Medellín, sleeping with one eye open. The palaces were gone. His entourage had shrunk to a handful of loyalists. The escape was the beginning of the end. Week by week, his empire crumbled. His rivals, backed by the U.S., were taking over. The Medellín Cartel was dying. Escobar was alone, with no allies, facing inevitable capture. And then a year passed. December 2nd, 1993. Pablo Escobar turned 44. It wasn't a celebration, it was a vigil of solitude. Hiding in a modest row house in a middle-class neighborhood, he was physically and emotionally exhausted. His family was holed up in a hotel under heavy government surveillance. That morning, he woke up anxious. Every sound outside felt like a raid. The hunt had intensified. The authorities were targeting anyone connected to him. The CIA was listening to the airwaves, monitoring every call, waiting for a mistake. He spent the morning moving between safe houses, avoiding cars to stay invisible. By 11 a.m., he settled into a hideout. He wanted to call his family. On his birthday, he just wanted to hear their voices. He knew the line wasn't safe, but the desire to hear his children overpowered his caution. He spoke in codes, keeping it brief, whispering to avoid detection. He tried to comfort them, but the call lasted only 2 minutes. After hanging up, the silence returned. He knew he wouldn't see them on his birthday, but the intelligence agencies had intercepted the signal. They confirmed he was in Medellín. The net tightened. Colombian troops and American agents began flooding the area, though they still didn't have a precise address. Escobar felt the walls closing in. He knew they were close. At 5 p.m., he decided to move again. Every move was a risk, but staying put was a death sentence. He decided to call his family one last time. He wanted to convince them to leave Colombia, to start a new life abroad. He knew he could never leave Medellín. His pride wouldn't let him, but they had to survive. When he made the call, the police intercepted the signal immediately. Rapid response teams began triangulating the source. They moved carefully. They needed to pinpoint him exactly without spooking him. Escobar had no idea they were right outside. He was guarded by just one loyal man. At 11 a.m., he made the fatal mistake. He stayed on the phone for 5 minutes. That was all the agents needed. The signal led them to a small house. Colombian troops moved in. Special forces surrounded the perimeter, blocking every exit. Escobar heard the noise outside. He knew. He grabbed his gun and, with his bodyguard, ran for the second floor. They climbed onto the roof, hoping to jump to the next building, but the police were ready. A firefight erupted. Escobar ran across the tiles. He tried to vault over a wall, but a sniper fired, a bullet to the leg, a bullet to the back, and finally, a shot to the head. Pablo Escobar was dead. The operation was a success. The story of the king of cocaine had come to an end. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like the video and subscribe for more history documentaries. See you next time.